What's going on, guys? It's Deadponic. I am back with another editor's commentary video, this time on my Plo Koon versus Inquisitor Jerec video. So, you probably have a lot of questions regarding that, but I just want to get a few things out of the way. Well, first of all, I used a lot of Gensai 1's analysis for this breakdown, mainly because I didn't have a lot of info going in, and plus I had actually recently rewatched that video because that's a really popular one. It's a really good video too. It was a video that from his old format that I really appreciated, and so I decided, well, I'm going to use Inquisitor Jerec because he's also really fascinating, and I wanted to pick out an opponent that was fairly would give him a relatively fair fight, or at least a good fight. So I picked Plo Koon because Plo Koon is a pretty popular character. And funny enough, it's been mentioned many times over the internet that Plo Koon is the favorite character of Dave Filoni, which is why in TCW there was such an effort to make sure his characterization and his skill set was properly correct. Which I feel like I'm repeating Dentarai's statement here, but where is the Force Lightning? I think the reason why they chose not to do the Electric Judgment was because basically they wanted to make sure Lightning was for the villains, whereas like Force Heal was more for the good guys. Though it doesn't show up in the show, but that's fine. Anyway, so yeah, going into this matchup, I had a lot of fun. Now, my biggest hurdle was actually getting like most of the actual pictures I needed. Specifically, there was one. It was Dreadnoughts of Rendili. That was a big challenge. It wasn't easy to get that. There were, and also the Great Hyperspace War, or no, sorry, not that. The Stark Hyperspace War, and Emissaries to Malastare. And those two comics I actually read through and found quite fascinating, actually. And then I had to use some of the TCW comics. And I used a lot of like TCW stuff, but that's kind of a sacrifice you have to make when you're dealing with a character like Plo Koon. It's not like somebody like Obi-Wan, where you can use like almost every source imaginable, except for the Kenobi series, obviously. But that's the funny thing. And so the thing I was trying to signify with this matchup was, how do you pit somebody who is basically has survived multiple conflicts, it has a very pragmatic sense of justice, and is a very powerful force wielder, versus basically a scholar who eventually became a Jedi hunter, but also maintains that scholarly desire. And the result was very mixed. The video's been doing pretty well. I mean, people have been disagreeing with my statements and my ultimate verdict regarding, the novelty value of force destruction and whether or not it would actually, Plo Koon could actually defend against it. But my argument was both the novelty value of it and also because whether or not Jerec would actually employ it is a question, because he's facing off against a Jedi Master, not a Jedi Knight or a Jedi Initiate like he did with Kyle Katarn. Which is funny because Dark Forces 2 is actually the origin, or at least somewhat of the origin, of Kyle Katarn. It was actually his first appearance within the Star Wars lore, at least. He was actually, his father, Morgan Katarn, actually held the secret of the value of the Jedi. And if you read the Darth Bane's trilogy, it's a really good series, by the way. I highly recommend it. But the Valley of the Jedi was basically where Lord Hoth and his Army of Light defeated Lord Khan and the Brotherhood of Darkness. And within that valley was basically a Force Nexus, I think. And so Jerec was intended to use that Force Nexus to basically take over the Imperial throne. Now, at that time that the game takes place, Palpatine was dead. Technically, actually, he was still alive. He was operating on BIS. And this was during the time of Dark Forces that he was operating and he was still alive. So, okay. And so, basically what happens is, so Q Ron, who was he was a veteran from the Clone Wars. He gets captured by Jerec, he gets tortured, and Jerec finds out that Morgan Katarn, who he had killed before, is the one who holds the Valley's location as a secret. And so and then shenanigans ensue, and well, Q-Ron dies. And this is where Kyle comes in, and he basically not stumbles, but his path leads to finding out about the Valley and becoming a Jedi trainee, essentially. And he basically goes through and kills off Jarek's Dark Jedi followers. The first he faces is Yun, and then he faces is it Gorkenpick? I don't know. And then he faces Ma, and then he faces Saris, and finally the last of it is Bak the Crude, or Bakaseka is his actual name, and then he finally confronts Jerec. Now, it's made pretty clear. Now, the novelization, the novella, the Dark Forces novella, is actually really cool, and I didn't know this, but until I rewatched that video. But it turns out that, well, Kyle basically he disrupted Jarek's connection to the dark side, which meant that during that final battle, Jerec was operating at a very serious disadvantage, and yet he was still able to give Kyle a hell of a fight. So there's that. And then as for Plo Koon's analysis, I focused more on his skills as he developed, and also I didn't know that he was actually I didn't know he was the Padawan of a Wookiee Jedi until much later. But it was very interesting to find out, and I didn't know that he actually got his seat because his master actually died, and that was Tyvaka's last wish. So I was like, it's great. That's really cool. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's I'm not gonna go through the entire video and talk about, oh, this image is really cool, I really like this image, this image was really hard to get on. But I will say, King Orange is doing the audio score for me, and I said, surprise me. He surprised me, all right. He actually put in the Kung Fu Panda movie score, specifically Kung Fu Panda 3, I believe. And it was like, wow, you surprised me, all right. And I was like, yep, yeah, I'm not surprised there. Well, I was surprised that he put that in, but it was like, yeah, I mean, he loves the Kung Fu Panda movies, so I figured he'd do something different rather than, coveted Halo or Battlestar Galactica or something obscure like Destiny, maybe. Because that's what we've been using that a lot lately in our collaborations. I might actually go back and maybe redo my first Versus collab with him, because that was a lot of fun. It did feel a little bit rushed, though. But past that, yeah, otherwise, I think the project turned out really well. It was a lot of fun to do. It wasn't a headache, believe it or not. I actually have created basically a formula for doing editing versus videos now, where I break it down, basically intro, and plus a little bit of ramblings, naming my sources. Then I do physicality and equipment and all that, and then martial, then force, and then finally the final verdict. But I make sure that I separate each one and I edit them individually, and then I put them together, and there you go. You got your versus video, that in my style specifically. So yeah, and now granted, I am going to be my now analytical formula is going to be a lot different than a lot of people's, or it's going to be more standardized, but I'm working to try to evolve it and try to make it so that it's more comprehensive, which is why my next matchup is going to be a lot more, it's going to be focused more on, it's going to be more detailed, and I'm going to try my very hardest to do two characters that I think would make a great matchup. Now, I'm going to keep this one a secret too, but I have another matchup planned with King Orange that whether or not uh, it does well, it'll probably go on his channel because it was his idea. But and I'm not saying whether or not we're actually doing it when it's coming out or when it's actually if it's official or not. But this matchup is one that he and I talked about together, and I said I would be down for it, and that's Qui-Gon Jinn versus Ron Coda. I like that matchup quite a bit, more so than most people. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the matchup is just a little bit one-sided, but it is a good matchup, and we're probably gonna release it as probably like a versus short, like kind of what Jenserai does with like the versus Strike Zone series that he does. And then as for me, I have a couple of matchups planned. I am going to be doing a very special video that hopefully will be interesting. And then my other big versus matchup that I want to do is actually an obvious conclusion, which most people have voted on. I actually put a poll out not too long ago asking you guys this, but Darth Vader versus Mace Windu. Now, I'm not taking into consideration the Revenge of the Sith video game. It is a good analog and it is a good setup, but it is not that was Anakin fighting Mace, not Darth Vader. And keep in mind, we're talking about Vader at his prime here, which would be about Empire Strikes Back, possibly Return of the Jedi. But past that, I think that matchup, even though it's not as obvious a conclusion, but it is very one-sided towards Vader, in my opinion. But I may do that one. I may talk about that one, or I may just say, okay, well, breaking it down in a regular like format, but just kind of do like a short, or just kind of talk about, hey, so Vader has this going for him, this going for him, and this going for him, and Mace has this going for him and this going for him, and how does that stack up against Vader specifically? Now, keep in mind that since I am going to be talking about like Vader, both using both canon and Legends continuity sources, I will be ignoring his appearance in the Kenobi series per Orange's request, because yeah, it's not exactly the best interpretation or the best depiction of Vader, but it is what it is. Though, if I'm being totally honest, if I have to ignore any other ones, I think I would actually either take his depiction out of Rebels, maybe, or maybe just use his depictions in Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order. Though he only gets one appearance in those two, but that's fine. Anyway, guys, so yeah, check the video out. It will be in the description, and just yeah, I'm kind of rambling again, but stay tuned for my next video. It's gonna be a doozy. If you guys want me to review the Acolyte series, let me know. I mean, I was planning to do it, but I'm not sure right now because of all the stigma that's going on right now. Oh boy, do I have words about that. But yeah, anyway guys, see you later.